Hi, ladies. Welcome to my brand new masterclass, Become a Match to Millions by me, Rebecca Barr, aka the Femalepreneur Coach. I am so excited that you're here today to learn a little bit more about how to essentially become an energetic match to receiving and holding on to millions. So you're in the right place. If you know you aren't yet fulfilling your financial potential, maybe you want to even be really audacious and the first millionaire in your family. You make money, but maybe there never seems to be enough left to build wealth. So we're not acclimatized or used to having overflow, just enough. So we're still very much in the survival state of your finances. Maybe you want to reclaim your power over money and eliminate the emotional hold that it has over you. So maybe you've had some trauma in the past and you're looking for ways to heal that so that you can create space at an energetic, mindset, practical, strategic, spiritual level to receive more. And maybe you just want to make more money and feel really good about doing it without lots of limiting beliefs and societal conditioning making you feel bad or wrong, or that you're leaving other people behind. So, if we aren't yet firm friends, as I mentioned, my name is Rebecca Barr. I am an award winning entrepreneur and best selling money mentor. That's my book there, The Good Girl's Guide to Money Making. I called it that because at the very core essence of us, we all just want to be good girls who are validated, appreciated, loved, seen, and have our needs met. So that is why the book is called that. So I support conscious female founders to grow their businesses in a really soulful and sustainable way. And because I am a money mentor and an embodiment of that abundance, I also am a trusted business consultant that consults with other female founders about how they can make their businesses more profitable and really live out their highest potential of that expression. Because for me, having a business is an extension of you. It's the probably one of the only few places as an entrepreneur and a business owner where you really get to do things in your own way. You get to work with the clients that you want to work with. You get to charge the prices that you want to charge. You get to talk about the things that you want to talk about, deliver it in a way that makes sense for you. So essentially, it's your party. And for me to be able to help other entrepreneurs to do that is really a soul's purpose for me. And this comes from my 10 plus years of experience in business. So depending on whether you have a brick and mortar business or an online business, this might resonate with you. So, my journey to entrepreneurship was not necessarily because I always saw that I had, this great entrepreneurial self belief and vision. It was genuinely from a place of necessity. And I think that that is the case for a lot of women in business. We aren't coming to this with this big ego and vision and aspirations. It's just literally, I need flexible childcare and I need to be able to do things on my own terms. But equally, I'm not silly that I haven't seen the opportunities that are available to us as women right now in terms of earning money and having that time and flexible freedom that the generations before us have never had. So I built my first business was actually a barbershop. So I bought what I thought was a turnkey business. It was not. It was very much a failing business and not doing very well at all. And I managed to essentially triple the turnover of that business and turn it into an award-winning success. From there, I leveraged that success and turned that platform into essentially an empire. So I had other brick and mortar businesses that ran alongside that. I had a ladies' hair salon, hair and beauty salon, tattoo studios. I had online businesses, product-based businesses, a clothing line for a time, an Amazon business. So I'd pretty much done it all. Equally now, I am a multi-business owner. So as much as I have my coaching and mentoring services, and consultancy business, I also am an global events business owner and investor in other businesses also, because I have a global events background. And for me, I have such purpose of bringing people together in person. Particularly navigating the transition from offline to online was quite an interesting one for me. And as a person that is naturally a people person, I found it very isolating, which is where this second business has now emerged. And also, I like to go to nice places. And I'm a busy mum of six with a 6-month old. So if I don't arrange work events that are nice and bougie and fabulous, I'm not really going out anywhere nice right now. Let me know if that resonates with you. So, as you can see, I have been featured in lots of different publications, prestigious publications. I was also interviewed in Florida for Fox 4 News as a woman of influence to talk about the launch of my first book. I'm currently writing my second. So, hopefully, you can see for yourself that I'm very much a trusted and safe authority when it comes to all things money, mindset, um, and that is tailored specifically for conscious female founders, women that are essentially good women that want to have more income, more impact. I have, mastered over 10 different modalities that I use with my clients. To essentially cover it from all angles. So I'm a manifesting generator if you use human design, Gemini with ADHD. So for me, money has just been such a core part of my journey through life. I'll share a little bit about that in a minute. But in order to really master the game of money, I had to immerse myself in typical manifesting generator style by learning every layer possible for healing, for empowerment, for knowledge, for transformation, transmutation, all of the things that we need in order to truly be a wealthy woman. Because here's the thing, the truth is, you will only ever receive the amount of money that you feel safe to receive, which will be based on the beliefs that were formed when you were younger around what is socially acceptable for you to receive in terms of money. And the amount of money that you feel worthy of receiving, which is all about your relationship with self. So, as much as I talk about money, what I'm ultimately talking about is female empowerment. When you become your own, it's that return to sovereignty. It's about when you feel that you are the authority in yourself, where you lean into your intuition, your own self trust, and become the embodiment of female leadership. That's what I want for you. So, hopefully, you can see that as we move through this presentation. So, my intention with this really is to plant some seeds of awareness. And we're only going to be talking about a small part of it today that will essentially be the gift that keeps on giving. Because once you see, you can't unsee. And when you know better, you do better and you'll move differently. You'll make different decisions, you'll take different actions, you'll think in different ways, and you will start to question and unlearn all of the unhelpful beliefs that have kept you stuck and in that toxic spiral with money, or maybe from, the highest vision of your financial future today. Because if you don't do this work, this is why 70% of lottery winners lose their money within the first 2 years, because no amount of money will actually solve your problems when it comes to money. Because even if you had it and you had it unexpectedly, or you had a huge cash win in your business, you would self-sabotage at every turn and essentially get rid of that money or manifest unexpected bills, because it will be so different to what you are acclimatized and what you are used to accepting and receiving, that it wouldn't feel safe and it would disappear. This is why I have created my Wealthy Woman framework. So I believe when I first started really exploring the journey, my own relationship with money, and started to go down that rabbit hole and kind of look at what other people are telling me is potentially wrong with my mindset. And I realized that was only really one level deep. That was only one part of the puzzle, really, to become an embodiment of a wealthy woman who, and you just know who those women are, by the way. They're the women that you would never think to ask for a discount, because they just give off that energy of don't even try it. The women that, they don't even have to say it. It's not about what they're wearing or the purchases that they have. You just feel that energy of she knows her shit. She is in control. She is an empowered woman. She is confident. She is articulate. She knows the value that she brings to the table. She probably has a really incredible investment portfolio. She probably is a wealth builder, or definitely on her way to, and in no way would be self-sabotaging any of that success, because she knows that she's worthy. So when I talk about a wealthy woman, that's what we are ultimately aiming for. And in order to become the embodiment of that, so not just somebody who knows, yeah, I've read some money mindset books, but actually lives and embodies that version of the wealthy woman, you need to look at three different levels, in my opinion. So you need to master your millionaire mindset. And that is through deep subconscious rewiring of the limiting beliefs that have made up you up until this point in your life. I use NLP and hypnotherapy for this with my clients. And this is what we're mainly going to be touching on today, the mindset element. If you did want to go further in that journey, then you obviously need to regulate your body to receiving riches, because we will have a very visceral response to situations around money. And you've probably felt this before, maybe jumping onto a sales call or getting visible online, or asking for, if you've got a customer that asks for a refund. All of that is going to invoke a very visceral response in your body. It might make you feel stressed. It might make you feel anxious, nervous. It will put you into your survival state response, where it's a fight, flight, or freeze, because you have trauma around situations with money growing up that have been stored in your body. And we always say the issues are in your tissues. And even if you think you're good at a logical and conscious level, your body always keeps the score and will always know. So even if you aren't sure, equally energy is everything. And you have to be able to neutralize the situations around money in order to become an energetic match to receiving more. So that is why I help my clients with nervous system regulation, through EFT, which is tapping. You may be familiar with that, and breath work, to essentially neutralize that response, that automatic unconscious response to money. That ultimately, we are emotional creatures that lead, think, act, and believe and behave from our emotions. These will be linked to the beliefs and the previous memories that have been stored relating to money. But that is ultimately, why we can act in impulse purchases, all of the things. So I can't wait to dive into some of this with you. And then obviously in alignment with that, underpinning it all, because what is the point of having loads of money if ultimately you're unhappy in the way that you're doing it? We also deserve to have spiritual fulfillment with that as well. So this is all about bringing your soul's purpose, your soul's contract, the innate energetic blueprint that you were always meant to, the pathway that you were always meant to walk in this lifetime, through human design and timeline therapy. I use that with my clients also, so that when you are living your highest expression, and it is literally an expression of your soul and everything that you are meant to be doing, your body is regulated to receive and your mindset is completely on board with what it is that you want. There is no resistance. You will stop self-sabotaging. You will stop playing small. You will stop undercharging, and money will stop disappearing from you because there is no resistance. Money loves to go where it's not moral. It doesn't care if you're a good person or you really need it. You have to be an energetic match to it. And it comes from keeping these three things in alignment with your goals, essentially. And then obviously for me as a business mentor, I also add in a layer of strategy that underpins that, so that again, your business can become the expression of that, so that you also are never leaving money on the table, because that would be a crime. And I'll tell you why in a minute. So why am I an expert on all things financial self-sabotage? Well, let me tell you about my story and journey with money. And I think that not enough women talk about financial self-sabotage, because I've seen this very much with, particularly in the coaching space, where I think we are used to going on a journey with personal growth. Definitely, we didn't talk about these sorts of things when I had a salon and brick and mortar businesses. But coming into the personal development space, there is a lot more open dialogue, but not enough when it comes to over investing, paying more than you need to, not allowing yourself to feel comfortable with overflow, having high cash months, but then low cash months. These feast and famine cycles, failed launches can all derail women in business from having that financial security that they deserve, that it then enables them to build wealth off the back of that. Not enough people talk about that, right? Because they only want to talk about the highlight reels, because they want people to invest in them, and it becomes almost like a pyramid scheme. So we don't want to talk about the bad times and the things that aren't working. And that was definitely my journey. So basically what happened to me, taking it back, my origin story. So when I was 4, my dad passed. We were a naval family. We lived on the south coast. And obviously when you're no longer part of the Navy, you can't live there. So we were made homeless. It was a very turbulent time. I don't remember a lot from that time, but I definitely remember the repercussions of that because of that trauma at such a young age for my mum, who was only 25 at the time. It caused her to go into that trauma response that I spoke about before, and essentially that I lost a mum and a dad on that day because she emotionally checked out. What happened was that the guys on the ship that my dad was with crowdfunded and provided her like a inheritance for me and my sister. She also had some money from life insurance, I'm guessing, and for a period of time things were very good. I definitely remember the abundant Christmases, and we had one holiday and things were okay. But sadly, because she hadn't acclimatized to receiving that money and she didn't feel worthy of receiving it and probably had a lot of unresolved issues around the way that that money had come to her, she self-sabotaged. She rejected it at every time at term, and she attracted very financially disempowering relationships, namely with my stepdad at the time. And eventually we lost the money. So I became homeless again in my early teens, and I was sent off to live with different family members, kind of bouncing around, never really having a permanent address after the ages of about 13. Um, but this started my lifelong journey with money. I'm very grateful for this experience. So it's not like a sad story. I'm actually very grateful for it because for anybody that's read Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad book, you will understand that that is actually a bit of a privilege in terms of having exposure to very differing views on money mindset so that you can then discern for yourself what feels natural. Most people grow up and the only kind of exposure or experience that they have is their immediate family. They might have exposure to social media now, but we wouldn't have necessarily had that growing up in the 80s, 90s. So you would just kind of had one view, one lens on what it means to be rich, what it means to be poor, where you fit in the world. Whereas for me, I had exposure to both sides of the fence because I was sent to live with very, one side of the family was very wealthy or considered to be. I now realize they probably weren't wealthy, but they were probably just very comfortable. And then equally, the other side of the family that was very poor. And it was interesting to me how their views on money and the language that they used and the potential that they thought was possible for them differed wildly. So on the poorer side of the family, there was a lot of suspicion around money and people that had money. They'd obviously been done something, underhand or dodgy. Everything was about the quick cash wins. Like, what can I get my hands on today, next week, now? They weren't thinking about long-term financial freedom. They weren't thinking about, 10 years time. They weren't thinking about savings, investments, any of that. It was literally like, and also how can I take it from somebody else, because they believed that money was a sum game. If you were successful, it meant that somebody else had to not be. So there was a lot of distrust. Don't pay the taxes. The government's out to get you. Everything was cash in hand. And there's no way to build from that place because where can you go? You can have a little bit more cash in your pocket, but that's not going to ultimately create a different financial future versus the wealthy side of my family that was very much in abundance. They gave to charity, they gave to other people. They didn't feel like if they were successful, somebody else couldn't be. They were talking about holidays in 5 years' time, which was wild to me. They were, very trusting. They had a completely relaxed approach to money. They didn't live in their nervous system. They always knew that they were going to get paid, money was going to come, holidays would happen. There was no uncertainty for them. And equally, having now consulted with other seven-figure women and been around, invested at a high level to be at the tables with eight-figure women via masterminds, that is one thing that I can see as a common theme. The people that are wealthy are very neutral when it comes to money. They don't care about it. They just know, they have that self-trust that it's always going to be there. They know that it's an unlimited resource. They're designed to support them and to amplify things about them. So, the thing is, if you're an asshole without money, you're going to be an asshole with money. And if you are a good person with money, you're going to be a good person without it. And neither or is going to affect anything in your internal world. And that was my experience growing up, was just seeing for myself, interesting. Isn't it funny how the people that don't trust and ultimately don't like money are the ones that don't have it? And the people that are super grateful and appreciative and abundant and, doing nice things for others are the ones that do. And and regardless of their moral compass and whether they were good people or not. It's just, so this for me was like such a fascinating journey, and I think it ultimately it makes me a better coach now, because I've experienced both sides of the fence, and it enabled me to connect the dots in ways that other typical money mentors don't, because they might have a rags to riches story, but for me, I don't have a rags to riches. I have a rags to riches and back again about 100 different times, because sometimes you need to learn the lesson more than once before you can fully learn the lesson and embody it. So, what happened for me was, by the time I was 18, I was already working 3 jobs and financially independent from like 15. So, I had managed to, with a partner, purchase my first home at 18, because that for me was just, that represented my safety. To finally have a home that was mine, that nobody could take away from me, was literally all I could eat, sleep, and think about. So I got my first home at 18, intuitively saw the potential without any guidance. That's the thing. I never had any mentors. We didn't have social media. YouTube wasn't a thing. The only thing that I had to even give me the inspiration to be able to build a property portfolio and think, interesting. I bought this house at one price. I've added some money to it and added the value. Suddenly now the price has increased. What happens to that bit of money in between? Like, wow, I didn't even have the language to articulate. But I realized through, in the UK, we have a property program called Homes Under the Hammer. That was the only exposure I had to wealth building and to how you can turn a profit from properties, which was my passion. Essentially, I loved, houses, design, interior design, and that was the only inspiration and learning that I had, that you could actually extract this profit and put it into another property and replicate it from there. And by the time I was 25, I had essentially amassed a 7-figure property portfolio, which I'm sure would be worth a lot more now. But here's the thing. I hadn't done the work. I didn't feel worthy or of the success that I created, because I truly didn't believe that I was anything special in what I'd done. I didn't realize that it was part of my human design is that I am a strategic thinker. I can see all of the moving parts almost as an intuitive download. Like, I can actually see it as a vision. So for me, something that I found very natural and very easy, because it was so easy, I almost didn't value it. And I thought, well, everybody can do this, right? Everybody can see that. And therefore, when the relationship that I bought that created that portfolio with broke down, I left and gave essentially 90% of that portfolio to him, because I didn't feel like I'd done anything, even though ultimately it was me that was driving the whole thing. I mean, the guy was not, the cleverest person, and he definitely didn't have any ambitions to build a property portfolio himself. If anything, I think he thought I was annoying, that I was like, oh, and we could do this and we could do this. He definitely didn't deserve it, the 90%, but you're welcome, because there's always more opportunities to make money. So I don't hold any trauma or resentment over that. I see it as an incredible life lesson and learning point, because I took enough to go and buy a property for myself with a friend. And essentially, what happened was, obviously I shouldn't have walked away from that money. That was me repeating toxic family patterns and cycles with money, because I didn't feel worthy, because I hadn't done the work around my own trauma and self-worth. So then obviously when I became an entrepreneur, and we're talking suddenly about big amounts of money, I didn't realize that what I was doing was self-sabotaging. So the barbershop that I created had, we tripled the turnover, created this kind of mini empire off the back of something that is ultimately, just a barbershop, charging 20 to 25 pounds for a haircut. It never should, and in most circumstances, it wouldn't have been successful. But because I truly believe that I was always meant to be an entrepreneur, I just didn't see it in myself. I truly believe that because I came at it as a business owner rather than a barber, or somebody that knows the customs and practices of that industry, that is what gave me the strategic commercial foresight to see it for the opportunity that it was, and to expand beyond the limitations of what that barbershop and that physical premises was. But I was making more money than ever, 100% cash business. Obviously, HMRC were like, interesting. Let's go and do an audit, because that sounds too good to be true. And it wasn't until I'd sat through 3 days of the most brutal audit ever with, two auditors literally sitting in my shop with me and my accountant going through absolutely every line for the last few years before that, that my accountant basically turned round to me and said, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yes." "What do you mean?" I was like, "Thank God we got through the audit. It was all fine." He was like, "You do realize that you are literally spending your money like you stole it. You are spending so much money on things that you do not need to be spending it on." And I was like, "Well, that's part of the entrepreneurial journey, right? Isn't it? You've got to reinvest in your business." And he was like, "No, that is financial self sabotage. You are ultimately doing things that don't need to be done, and you're losing your profit as a result." And that one question, I realized, was the first time in my whole life that anybody had actually ever asked me if I was okay when it came to money. Up until that point, a lot of people had been profiting off my trauma. Friends that were allowing me to pay for things, family members that were asking me for loans, people that were essentially, getting me to pay for things that I shouldn't have had to be. My staff obviously were absolutely taking the piss because I didn't know the industry. And it was just like a really confronting journey, because even when I think back to that situation with my ex-partner around the property, I should have stood my ground and got at least 50% of that profit and that portfolio. There was no one around me at the time that was telling me to do that. Everybody else was like, "Well, he's really sad. He's a nice guy. Do you really want to like go to court? Do you really want to, upset the apple cart and be arguing about this for 2 years? Don't you just want a clean break? Isn't it better just to give it to him? Could you really handle that portfolio if you had it?" Like, it blows my mind that I had never had anybody truly have my best interests at heart. Even family, probably thought, I don't know what they thought, but maybe I'd like to think that they thought they were doing the right thing and saving me the hassle and the headache. But because women aren't taught to be wealth builders, they aren't taught to be asking for their worth. They are taught to play small and go away, essentially, which is what I'd done. And obviously, because I hadn't dealt with any of that mindset stuff and, my own self worth, equally in my personal life, I had attracted financially disempowering relationships and friends who were essentially taking the piss. So, God, when I sat and thought about it, my desire to want a better life for myself meant that I was working 3 jobs. So when all my friends were out on the piss on the weekends, I was working 3 jobs. They were hungover. I was out at 5 in the morning, starting my second job. I had done the work and they had all profited, because then, I'd paid for holidays. I was paying my staff £600 a month in coffee. And what I was ultimately saying was, I don't think I'm worthy of having money. I might as well spend it now, because it's going to leave me anyway, like everybody else does, and how it always has done in the past. But I was always compensating people in my life to be around me, because I didn't feel worthy that they would like me, that they would want to be my friend, or that they would love me, unless I did pay in some way or another. So I was the overgiver. I was the people pleaser. I was the one that would pay for holidays, nights out, drinks, taxis, anything to, over generous with gifts, anything to just kind of compensate them for knowing me. And isn't that just crazy? And in my head, I wasn't doing any of those things. I was investing in my business. I was keeping my staff loyal. I was being a generous person. But there was so much deeper than that. So, how you do one thing is how you do everything in life. And your relationship with money is symbolic of your relationship with self. How much love you're prepared to receive, how much visibility you're prepared to receive, how much support, how much. How much money equally, but just essentially what you are used to receiving, it then is being mirrored back to you in your reality. And here's the thing, when I started coaching, it was done very organically from a place of getting annoyed, actually, because I'd felt quite lonely in my business. As I said, friendship groups typically fall away when you become an entrepreneur, because they're used to seeing you as one version of you. And when you suddenly become a business owner, you've got to be more visible online. You've got to be a bit more assertive with asking for prices because, you've got kids to feed and bills to pay. But also, you have to be more ruthless with your time. You've maybe got to be on socials. That's all new territory that you're navigating as an entrepreneur that you don't have to deal with those challenges if you're in a corporate career. You don't have to do that when you're at school. So therefore, all of those people that are used to seeing you as one version of you, and we'll talk a little bit about identity in a minute, suddenly you look different. You're the problem. You're the one that's changed. And it can be very confronting for those people around you that have put you in a certain box, that feel familiar with that version of you, and suddenly now don't know how to talk to you, don't know how to approach you, don't know how to stay relevant in your life because they don't recognize you, right? It can also be that your success is triggering them because they equally could have the same success, but they are not taking the action that you are. So there's lots of different reasons why. But when I would go to networking events and to find that sense of connection with other entrepreneurs, I would get so pissed off by the amount of women, fabulous women, creatives, independents, healers, amazing women that were massively lowballing their potential, that were only thinking about the next kind of, month's rent or pocket money for their businesses rather than really seeing them as the empires that they could be. And here's why. I'm going to share with you a little bit of the reality around why it is actually more difficult for women to become wealth builders than men. So, and equally, this is why we need to be doing this. So, if you are not happy currently with the way that the economy is going, the cost of living is going up, the way that politicians are running our world, you have an opportunity as a female entrepreneur to change all of that. Because if we scaled our businesses at the same rate as men, we would add over 250 billion to the UK economy. That would really wield some crazy economic power up in here. They would have to start listening to us and to our voices and be recognizing our businesses. And you could make some real impact in the way that things are done around here. But only if you give yourself permission. That's the thing, because nobody is actually stopping us from scaling other than ourselves. And here's why. So our brains are actually wired to be more risk averse than men. And if you think about it, our brains have only evolved a small percentage since caveman days. We are still very much running off outdated programming that kept us safe thousands of millennia ago when they needed women to stay close to the herd, be part of a community and a tribe, to be the nurturers and the caregivers for the young tribal members, i.e. our children. They needed men to go out and to not be afraid of tigers and lions and bears because they were going out and hunting and gathering. So for us, we actually have a different makeup of neuroscience, essentially, that applies to our brains. We are designed to be more risk averse. So if we feel that we have a perceived sense of failure, we will automatically take ourselves out of the game in that situation. We won't even try if we don't believe that we have a good opportunity or outcome for success, which blows my mind because of that risk averse, it actually makes us better investors. It makes us less emotional beings when it comes to strategic decision making. But societal conditioning holds us back from demonstrating or flexing those skills because we're taught from a very young age to be a good girl who is quiet, who is amenable to everybody, who is looking after everyone else but ourselves. We are taught to be, in the home, doing the lion's share of the responsibilities and the homework and the house chores, as well as nowadays having to equally contribute financially. So societal conditioning tells us to be nice, to be liked, to be loved by other people. And that is stealing our creativity, our innovation, our inspiration, our opportunity to rise up as female leaders. We are also we're likely to be seen more of a risk in terms of investment. So the thing is, we have governmental bias, essentially, that means that only 1 to 2% of venture capital ever goes to female-led founders. So the thing is, for me, when I started my entrepreneurial journey, it literally came from a place of necessity. My mum was my main childcare giver at the time. I was a single parent with 3 young children, and I needed to work a full-time job. I was traveling around the country. I thought having a corporate career and really going all in was my ticket to freedom, financial freedom and safety. I thought that if I was a good girl that put my head down, that towed the political party line at work, I was worked in HR, that would then lead me to success and safety for me and my children. But what happened was my mum, like I say, was my main child caregiver. She suddenly became very sick and could not have my three children. I had three children under five, and ultimately I couldn't afford childcare. So I had to go out and sell my home, relocate me and my children to another part, literally the opposite end of London, to go and buy a turnkey business, which again I thought was a safe business prospect and the easiest way to entrepreneurship, because I didn't value all of the skills that I innately had to make that business work. So I thought I'll go by what somebody else is already doing and I'll just try and make it better or sustain it. I should not have had to sell my house to do that. But the reality was nobody was going to lend me money because I was deemed to be too much of a risk as a woman, as a mother, and as a single parent also with dependents. I couldn't even release the equity from my house to up level my mortgage at one time because of that reason as well. Even though I had nearly £200,000 in equity in my house, they still wouldn't let me remortgage because of those reasons. That is madness, because what I created off the back of it was incredible, but equally took me off the property ladder, which was very difficult to then get back onto. So it's very disappointing that the government and investors have still not woken up to that £250 billion that could be entering the UK economy as yet. But the more that we rise up, show them what's possible, the more that they will, fall in line, obviously, because everybody follows the money. But anywho, we typically have more responsibilities and commitments. So we're trying to build these businesses with 1,000 other hats that we need to wear and plates that we're juggling, and very limited time and resources. We equally lack the financial education and environments for success. So I don't know about you, but my mum worked at the co-op. She definitely wasn't a trailblazing female entrepreneur that was then paving the way and giving me permission for what is possible for me. I have absolutely fought challenges at every stage of my journey, and then equally had to invest very heavily to find out strategies to invest, to build a stocks and shares portfolio, to create a financial better future for my children, to learn about property investments at that level and all those things too. We also have ancestral wounds. So we know through the study of epigenetics that as part of our survival programming, we are actually handed down from our ancestors and through our lineage a set of fears and phobias that don't even relate to our own first-hand experience, as a way to keep us safe. So we talk about this as the witch's wound, but if you think about it, at every stage in history, women have been persecuted for speaking their truth, for being audacious, for being different, for being bold, for having an opinion. And really, it's only been in the last kind of 50 years that it's even been socially acceptable for women to be able to get a mortgage without a male countersign. So before then, we would have needed a father or a husband to sign in order for us to have a savings account, an investment account, a mortgage. It's only been within our lifetime that these things are now socially acceptable for us to do that. So we have this very real, visceral response to all of the things required to be a successful entrepreneur. I.e., being visible, being different, having an opinion, being outspoken, being an authority. And I believe that this is why 12% of female-led businesses will ever hit. Only 12% will ever hit the six-figure mark. Now, that might sound like an incredible amount of money, and probably years ago it was, but the reality is with the cost of living crisis, with VAT and taxes, six figures isn't even that much money anymore. It really isn't. It used to be that you'd have to be like the director or the owner of a business, and a very successful corporate business to make six figures. Now it's just so common practice. House prices have gone up. If only 12% of us are reaching that amount of money, we're not even reaching financial safety, let alone abundance, let alone the 2% of millionaires that are ever going to make it. Isn't that amazing. Only 2% of female-led businesses will ever make seven figures. That's so disappointing. But I believe it's because we're running our businesses as hobbies, as side hustles, as projects, rather than actual empires. We're not reinvesting into infrastructure, into teams, into mentors, into software. We are bootstrapping absolutely everything. And I equally believe that's why we have the highest startup and close rate, because we haven't set ourselves up for success, but also why we are twice as likely as men to live in poverty in the UK. And that is because we are so used to accepting the scraps that we have available to us, particularly as mothers. We make sure that our kids have absolutely everything and we take nothing for ourselves. But that is stopping our financial and economic growth because we're so goddamn good at being resourceful. We are not able to then take up more room in the marketplace. And equally, a special nuance for us in the UK is that as women, we have a lot, we think that we have more perceived safety by staying within the benefit system. So the amount of women that have come to me that said, I can only earn so much money because I don't want to lose my universal credits. My maternity pay hasn't run out. I don't want to pay more tax. I don't want to hit the VAT threshold. Like, I've never had that conversation with a man. Like, that's the reality. The more money they earn, the better they earn. So why are we like this? As I've said, because the reality is, I truly believe in order for us as women and as entrepreneurs to survive this next wave of entrepreneurship with AI coming in and taking over, we have to be owning the value that we bring to the table so that we can truly create something innovative, something different, something creative, something empowered and lasting, built on a stable financial base so that we can survive this next wave of entrepreneurship, because equally the world needs it. The world needs more healers. It needs more. The patriarchy is crumbling. The outdated systems of doing business, of doing life, politics, the government, the banking system, it needs change. So the more that we can start to give ourselves permission to rise up, to make more money, to be more audacious, to be more authentic, more aligned with what it is that we're supposed to be talking about, to connect more and remove the shame around our stories so that we can, attract and empower the right clients for us, the more that we will survive what's coming next in this age of information and AI, where everything is automated and the human aspect is removed. The more that you can create an alternative narrative and show up online with something refreshing and different and real and genuine, the more, and equally if you have a brick and mortar business, even more so, and elevate yourself as a personal brand as opposed to just a number in the economy, the more that the world will benefit from that, the more successful that you will be. And the world needs you to be wealthy right now because we need this alternative narrative. So obviously today, as I said, there's lots of moving parts when it comes to being an embodiment and a vibrational match to wealth. I want to talk to you mainly about your mindset, because that's the step one. That is overriding everything that you are doing right now. So as you can see from this graphic, your money beliefs, this is a visual representation of your mind in very basic forms. So you have the conscious part of your brain. This is where your willpower lives. It's where your conscious thought lives, but it's only 5% of what is actually running the operations of your brain and your body. It's only a small percentage that you are consciously aware of and that you have any element of control over without some deep subconscious rewiring. Then we have the pre-conscious element to our brain, which is where you could, in theory, I think this part has escaped me with sleep deprivation with a newborn baby, where you could, with some thought and some effort, access. So that's the pre-conscious. This is where your filter lives, your reticular activating system, which essentially filters out the information that your brain does not deem to be important to you. So if you think about it, when you wake up in the morning, there is so much stimulus that would be bombarding you at any point, light, sound, smell, touch, all of the senses. If you had to be consciously aware of all of that, your brain would probably melt before you even got out of bed. So you have a filter in place that essentially, makes you consciously aware of the things that you need to be aware of and unconsciously filters out the things that you don't. And this is where like 90% of your programming that is running your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, therefore your actions, is below the surface. Think of it like an iceberg in your unconscious programming. So how is that programming a thing. How does that work, and how does that happen? So before the ages of 7, you don't have the preconscious, you don't have the critical faculty function part of your brain. You are essentially a walking, talking sponge who is picking up on everything, literally. You see something and your brain immediately has to make a connection or a meaning to that thing so that it knows where to filter it. And think of it like filing cabinets. And this is because it wants to get you up to speed as quick as humanly possible around how things are done around here, because it needs you to fit into the collective and the tribe. You need to understand the custom and practice, the accepted behaviors and beliefs that are accepted by your peer in your tribe so that they will feel compelled to look after you. And it is very interesting. So if you think about a brand new baby coming into this world, like an Apple iPhone that has yet to download the cloud and the programming, it is like a sponge. It is completely susceptible. This is where the nurture versus nature debate always comes in. It has no real conscious thought yet. It doesn't know how to do a thing. But or we think so. We think they're completely helpless when they come in. But actually, there'll be a few things that are inherent, as I said, through the study of epigenetics that are passed down through our ancestors. So a baby will already come into this world with an inherent fear of being dropped, which is where the startle reflex comes in. So if you even like dip a baby, it will throw its arms out. Nobody's told it to do that thing, but it already knows that because it's been passed down, and it will already be afraid of loud noises. So it will jump, it will have, it will be scared by a loud noise. And there's so many other nuances as well. It's fascinating, child psychology, how this impacts our beliefs and the way that they're formed. If you want to dive into it, even just from the fact that the baby looks more like the dad than the mum, is a survival instinct. It happens because obviously the men are designed to wander off from the tribe because they're hunter-gatherers. But if a baby looks like a man, it's more likely to feel compelled to come back to it because it recognizes that that is their heir, their lineage. They need to go away, but they need to come back. Whereas it already knows that the mother has everything in its body to nurture, and we already are compelled to respond to its cries, respond to its cues for feeding. So it doesn't need to worry about looking like us, essentially. Even though we do all the hard work, it's all about inspiring the dad to want to connect with and have that bond with the child. So, how this plays out is that if you were living in a house where perhaps your dad was emotionally unavailable or physically unavailable, then you would, maybe he's working long hours, or you'll learn the behavior that, or the belief that making money means that you are away, that you are abandoned. If you then want to make money, that somebody is going to suffer as a result of that, especially if you're a mother. You might feel like my kids are going to miss out on my time, my energy. They're going to be at a disadvantage somehow because my dad was always gone when he was off working. Maybe your mum was too. So therefore, I don't want that for my children. I would rather have less money and work around them because that's me being a good mum. I definitely had that belief, even though, necessity meant that I had to be away from my kids because I didn't have a partner. I had a lot of guilt that made me feel horrendous about it and just really ruined that experience of motherhood in the first 3, I would say, because it was a constant like rock and a hard place. Equally, if your parents argued about money, you would have picked up on the belief that money equals bad, it equals rejection, it equals distrust. I definitely picked up on a lot of those behaviors because of the language that my mum was using around money. There was always a lot of emotional angst, a lot of fear, a lot of distrust, a lot of scarcity. If you heard things like the rich get rich while the poor get poor, money doesn't grow on trees. Mo money, mo problems, if you're from the 90s, all of those things would have been imprinting on you, whether it was socially acceptable to have money or whether it wasn't. And if you were raised in an affluent household, you could have equally been told things like, stay humble, don't brag. Other people will want what they'll be jealous if you have more than you need. If you're in a religious household, you might have had expectations to give away money because you don't want to have more than you need because there's always somebody else that's more deserving. All of these things, even just actually, social media. What were the films that you were watching? Sorry, not social media, but in the media. What were the films that you were watching growing up. For me, The Devil Wears Prada, everything is always, and a lot of other 80s films that my kids will never see because they were completely inappropriate for children. But it was always the rich people were greedy and underhand and shady and money grabbing and never happy. And my mum used to often say to me, like, when will you ever have enough money? Take time off. Don't worry about it. Like, you don't need to work as hard as you do. Just be at home with your kids, sit out, do your time. And it's like, I genuinely need to earn money and I want to keep them safe and be empowered as a homeowner. She couldn't understand my motivation at all for continuing working after I'd had the kids. And she would make me feel a lot of guilt and shame around that. Like, they miss you, they need you. What are you doing? Even though she would have them, she would make me feel very bad about it. But equally, especially with women, I saw a lot of Goldie Hawn films. I'm thinking about the Overboard one. Let me know if you've seen it, where, when she was rich, she was a bitch. When she was poor, unexpectedly poor, she was humble, she was nice, she was a better person. Same with Devil's Wears Prada. There's no reason why Andy should not have been able to have both a career and a loving partner. But that whole film is like, when she made it after all that hard work, her reward was that her partner left her because she changed as a person in order to be successful. Well, the reality is we're living in a time where none of that actually has to happen. As I said, money is just an amplifier. If you're a good person now, you'll be even better when you have resources to support you to fulfill your mission and make that impact that you are deserving of and capable of. You no longer have to choose. So it's for us now, as this generation, going fast without the people showing us that what we wanted was safe and okay, to start to unlearn and create discernment for ourselves around, is this something that I believe? Has this belief might have kept me safe up until now? Because self-sabotage is real. I talk about financial saboteur archetypes, where there'll be part of you that wants to be successful, but part of you that doesn't, because of all of these experiences, all of this rich tapestry of conversations and subtle programming that was going on, from early years, keeping you where you were in that tribal mindset. All of that will be making up how you are now thinking, acting, and moving as it relates to money and entrepreneurship in your business as an adult. So, it's great for us before the ages of 7. When kids have that innocence, they will believe anything that you tell them because you are their trusted authority as their caregiver. You are their tribal elder. You are their Beyonce, their North Star. It's how, great for me when I'm talking about Santa Claus and things with my kids, and the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy, and it's beautiful. But it doesn't actually help them then as they get older, when they're trying to think about, I don't want to be unliked by the people around me that are familiar to me because I'm in the same state of struggle. It's a very complex relationship, but it's for us to start to, like I say, start to detach from the beliefs that we were programmed with and start to have that discernment and questioning and radical self-awareness, to start to understand and see them for what they were, because of that beliefs, you will then start to unconsciously self-sabotage what you want. And I can show you in this graphic here. So you might consciously want 6 figures in your business. Of course, who doesn't? If I said to you right now, would you like £1 million? No part of you is going to say no, obviously, consciously. But unconsciously, if I actually went to give you that money, there will be so many parts of you that are triggered by that, emotionally, physically, mentally, because you've never had £1 million before. So actually, you're kind of like your gatekeepers in your mind, will be telling you that it's unsafe for you to have that money. It will tell you that, God, think about the taxes. Everybody will come out the woodwork. People won't like you. You will have to pay. People will be asking you for handouts. You might have to leave your kids. What if you leave your family behind? What if people don't like you? What if people turn on you? You'll have to stay humble. Don't brag about it. Don't make people feel bad. Don't make them feel less than. Like, so much, if you really thought about it, would come up for you because of that programming. And therefore, what would happen is that your reality that would be reflected back from you because of those unconscious beliefs is that either you would reject it and be like, no, give it to somebody else, somebody's more deserving, or you would receive it, but you would lose it, which is why 70% of lottery winners lose their money within that first 2 years, because they're probably either trying to lift everybody else up around them by overspending, or they would just be self-sabotaging, because people, they wouldn't want that rejection and abandonment from the people around them that are like, oh, you've changed, you're too good for us, we can't afford the holidays that you can afford. So therefore, either way, you'll never hit the money that you want, or you will not have it for very long. So, what I would love for you to do in order to cultivate some of that radical self awareness right now and every day from here is to think about this journal prompt. So, what is your financial goal right now? And again, as women, we're gaslit the hell out of coaches that are like, yes, you can have what you want, girl. Go aim big, be audacious, be bold. But then they're not equipping you with the tools and the toolkit to actually be able to hold that money. I had a coach once that told me to triple my prices overnight just because I could, because people would pay it, and because I was undervaluing myself. And I was like, but I'm not ready. I can't get behind that new number because I haven't acclimatized to it, because I need to sit with it for a bit. I need to like journal on it, because I understood that me just saying that I'm going to do it is not going to actually help me to get my mind and my body and my soul in alignment with it. So therefore, I'm not going to achieve it anyway. We're just kind of like gaslighting ourselves otherwise. So when you set that goal, what part of you tells you that you can't have it? So what is the but that comes up for you after you set that goal? Because that is powerful feedback. So typically, as a parent with young kids, I still have to work on the belief that, like, well, I don't have the time, I don't have the resources, I don't have that might take time away from the baby, that I'd have to work harder to get that money. And actually, the reality is it's easier to make more money than it is to make less, because in the beginning stage of your business, you're bootstrapping everything, you're hustling for every sale, you are learning as you go, you don't feel confident that you can replicate the success that you're creating. So therefore, you don't put money back into your business to scale it, to invest in teams, in software, and ad spend. So it is very hard at the beginning stages, but actually the more that you increase your prices, honor your boundaries, and reinvest in your business and allow it to be the business that it should be, the easier it gets to make that money. The compound effect is real. It takes more energy to get a plane off the ground than it does to actually fly to the destination. So actually, you can then start to question for yourself, is this belief actually true? For me at the beginning stages as a single parent, it was very much like, well, I'm doing it alone, it will be so hard. And actually, J.K. Rowling built her empire as a single parent. There are lots of women out there doing it that look like you, that sound like you, that have similar experiences to you, that can't be on social media. I get that a lot because of lots of different reasons. I can't be on socials, I can't be visible, I can't do this, I can't do that. Somebody somewhere has found a workaround. So find the evidence that what you want is safe for you to receive it. What would be a better belief that you can actually get behind? So like I said, for me, just to triple my prices overnight, I already had the self-awareness to know that I couldn't get behind that, but I created a better belief that I could, a bridge to that goal that enabled me to get fully on board with that and know that it was possible. So therefore, my actions were different. So therefore, the energy that I showed up with was different, because I knew there was a very real possibility that I could achieve that goal. And then it's for you to start, and therefore I got the outcome that I wanted. And that is what I want you to then do. What would be a better belief? And then how can you reinforce that belief daily? So, if you want to dive into your journey with money, your money story currently, and you want to just start to cultivate some radical self awareness, I'm going to share with you some of the things that may have come up that will now be impacting. That would have programmed you at the time, that are now impacting you, that you can then start to understand that you are both the problem and the solution. So that's the empowering thing. We can't change the past. We can't change the things that have happened to us, but we can reframe how we think about it, how we feel about it. We can heal the parts of us that need to be healed so that we are emotionally neutral to it, so that we can then reclaim our financial future. And that's what I love about doing this work. Like I say, you don't need to change the past. The reality is, it is what it is. But you can take the lessons from it. You can feel better about it. You can not allow it to continue to have power over you. And you can then decide and declare that it gets to be different from here on out. So what were the significant events that occurred during your childhood that relate to money? So maybe you were like me, the 80s was a very abundant time for entrepreneurs, but not necessarily ethical ones that were able to sustain it. I also went through the property crash in the 2000s. Maybe you did. Maybe you made some bad financial investments. Maybe your parents did. Like, what does that look like for you? Not only that relate to money, but also think bigger, because as I said earlier, your relationship with money is symbolic of something, your ability to receive love and all of these things. And the mother and father wound is real. So do you have any trauma that relates to your relationship with your mother or your father? Now, if you have any relationship, so the mother is typically, she represents the feminine energy. And in order to have a healthy relationship with money, you need to have a balance of masculine and feminine energy, particularly as an entrepreneur. The masculine relates to the safety and the structure. It's like the container that holds us. And then the feminine is the fluidity within that. So that's where so the masculine is about the action plans, the goal setting, the systems, the structures that support us to make money. And the feminine is about the intuition, the creativity, the collaboration that enables us to create like something truly inspired, creative, different for the marketplace. If you don't have and know when to make an invitation, when not, how to build strategic partnerships that balance out and become a win-win for everybody. If you don't have a balance of that, you can end up in your toxic masculine, where you are hustling for every sale, where you are in your push energy, where you are making loads of money, but perhaps it's disappearing out the back end because you aren't used to holding it. And equally, if you're too much in your feminine, you can be like, yeah, I show up sometimes, but I don't show up others. I'm not consistent. I don't really like to charge premium prices. I don't really follow through. Like, you need to have that balance. And that is mirrored there's so much work you could do on this. It's why I have my academy, the First Generation Academy. We do all of these deep dives into all of these themes that I'm talking about today, and also then the other missing parts, which are the emotional regulation and the soulful strategy and all of the things. But the mother and the father win. If you had a mum who was emotionally avoidant, who was not very happy in herself, not very fulfilled, then think of your mum as your Beyonce, your North Star, your tribal elder, who was showing you as a woman what is possible for you. If she played small, if she was unhappy, if she was constantly even just pulling herself apart in the mirror about, I'm ugly, I'm fat, I'm this, I'm that, I would do these things, but your father says no, like abdicating her financial power to somebody else, then that is what is going to be mirrored as safety for you. Don't go out in the world as a woman and ask for too much because you'll be persecuted. Equally with the father figure, he is there to provide emotional safety for you. He is there to be the strong masculine presence in your life. And if you did not have that, either because he was not there, like mine, or if he was not safe, then obviously that will be impacting you as an adult, because then masculine structures are unsafe, men are unsafe. It's not safe for me to receive love because I'm not used to it. It's so different to what I'm used to it. Maybe he was somebody that only validated you and your needs as a child if you were succeeding. Therefore, you will be looking for that validation in the busyness, in the hustle, in the prestige, in your ego, in your corporate career, but also as an entrepreneur, because maybe that's the only time that you got love and appreciation from your dad. Maybe he was there but absent because he was working all the time and absolutely knackered when he got home. So therefore, your emotional needs were not met as a child, and especially as a young girl. Like, daddy issues are real. We need those solid, nurturing, safe, reliable, masculine presence for us to thrive then as women, as adults, to know what love looks like, to know what self-worth looks like, to not be chasing men as an adult that are going to validate and tell us that we're pretty, because we'll already have that inherent self-worth because we got it from our dad when we were growing up. We don't need somebody else to tell us because we've already got it inside. So it's just fascinating how this can impact us then as entrepreneurs, not charging your worth, chasing every client, and how the ripple effects of that, when you do this work, will be mirrored back to you in so many different areas of your life, your relationships, your home, all of the things, your friendships. And there's actually lots of different milestones in our child development phases that if we experience trauma at that stage, that will impact our financial ability growing up. So again, early years is very much around attachment. If we didn't have a safe, nurturing environment because our parents were even just working away and we were put into nurseries and these sorts of things, that will impact our emotional attachment style when we're older. As we move into like primary school, middle school, it's all about identity. And again, if we were made to feel bad or wrong for being different, for being creative, for not fitting the mold. It's why I hate traditional education. It's why I homeschool two of my teenage girls. Then obviously we won't have that strong sense of self as we're older. Then if you move into the teenagers, it's all about community and tribe mindset. Where do we fit in the pecking order around here? And this is why I hate, like, my two teenage girls. I never want them to go to full-time education, because it's all about the tribe mindset. It's about the clique. It's about being accepted by your peers. It's not about being different. It's about the TikTok trends and the Sephora carts and all of the things. I fucking hate it. It doesn't cultivate original thinking and original personalities. It doesn't reward you for any of that you actually need as an entrepreneur. All of the skill set you need to be a successful entrepreneur, we are not equipped at any point of our lives to actually cultivate those skills, because we're taught to be fucking mediocre and average, and to fit in, and to toe the political party line, and the in terms of society. It drives me mad. So all of your upbringing has not set you up for success as a female entrepreneur, but it's about you getting the emotional awareness to understand that for yourself. So what were the parts of your childhood that really didn't set you up for success? What were the attitudes about money, the relationship with your parents? Even the order in which you were born will have an impact. So I have 6 children. Obviously, my oldest daughter is very cautious with her money, and I have to be so mindful as a parent that that is partly my fault, because when she was young, growing up, it was all about the siblings that were coming up behind her. So I just need you to be a good girl. Can you just sit there? Can you just watch your sibling? Can you just let me do this first, and then I will come back to you? In those situations, her emotional needs were not met. And equally, as parents, we are all doing the best that we can with the circumstances and the tools that we have available to us at that time. So there's no bad or wrong or right answer. That's the thing. Like, we're all just doing the best that we can. And I think when you can understand that as humans, then it gives you a lot of compassion for your parents that, again, didn't know any better. They were growing up in very different times where there was a lot of lack, where kids were seen and not heard, and it gives us a lot of compassion for them. So even, like I say, she is very cautious with her money, even though I'm always telling her there's always more money where that comes from. It's okay for you to spend. She just naturally is very cautious because of the way that she was brought up. My youngest daughter, next one in line from the baby, she is absolutely feral. She is throwing herself off of things. She's not scared at all of anything. She has no recognition of authority. She doesn't have any fucks to give for anything. So therefore, it's very likely. My partner has 3 children himself, so she is actually one of the youngest of 9 siblings. The reality is there is always someone there to pick up after her. There is always someone there to help her when she needs something. She will never really truly know what it means to be fully, self-reliant. And equally, I'm not mad about it. I'm glad that I've built a mini tribe within my own children, and that they will all support each other. And I talk a lot about being part of a team, but equally appreciating and recognizing their own individual quirks and interests and personality types, because I'm here to nurture that. So what order from your siblings were you born? How are these patterns or traumas now showing up in your current reality? And bear in mind that trauma that is relative. So there are big T traumas, like me when I was homeless, although the reality is a lot of the time when you're in a state of trauma, you don't realize that it's traumatic, particularly if it's part of your upbringing. Like, you don't know how fucked up your childhood was until you start talking to other people and realize, oh, that was really bad. And me and my siblings often laugh about it now, where we're like, can you imagine if we did that with our kids now? Like, how crazy that would be. Because you don't realize it at the time. But equally, there's the little T traumas. So like, my daughter the other day wanted her Sephora cart purchased. It was like £1,000. And as much as I am, an evolved, empowered being as a parent, and teach them about abundance, I'm not paying £1,000 for a Sephora cart. That doesn't feel like a good exchange of value. We have conversations around value rather than price point. and affordability. But I set her the challenge that if you want it, you are absolutely, I'm not going to shame you to feel bad or wrong about your desires when it comes to money, but I am going to encourage you strongly to go out and think of creative ways to go and find that money because mummy is not buying it. And she actually came back with a business plan for me that requires some startup investment from me, but would ultimately help her to, and that's what I love. That's my role as a parent, is to build the emotional resilience and creative innovation and ingenuity to go and make sure that she will never want for anything because she'll always have herself to rely on. So, as I've mentioned, if anything has come up for you around the programming, the beliefs, the early years experiences, this is how we heal it, because in the universe loves a void. The more that we become this beautiful, clear conduit to receiving money, because we aren't emotionally stagnant, we aren't reliving past traumas, we aren't stuck in the grief or disappointment of past experiences, the more that we can receive more, obviously, in our business. And this is coming into now like manifestation and energetic alignment and vibration. So it's like kind of, the next stage on from what I'm talking about in terms of mindset. But for me, it needs to happen at every level. So to bring your mind, body, and soul into alignment with what you want so that you can eliminate resistance and equally tap into that beautiful, inspired action, we need to do this at a conscious healing level. So finding the evidence that what we want is safe and choosing to let go of the past experiences, upholding our boundaries at a conscious level, being that gatekeeper of our own personal energy. Not everybody gets to have access to you. Especially if they're not treating you right. Unconscious healing. So this is about the rewiring your unconscious beliefs and programming to actually receive wealth. So diving deeper into your money story, healing your inner child, reprogramming your mindset for success, doing some of the identity work that I was talking about, physical healing. So this is where the body regulation needs to come in. So neutralizing the emotional charge from money, eliminating triggers. Spiritual healing, which is around reclaiming your power, reconnecting to your own inner guidance, healing your fear of judgment. So that witch's wound that we talked about, working in alignment with your human design so that you are also magnetic to manifesting your goals. The business healing, so at a very strategic, practical level, forgiving the past bad investments and mistakes, realigning your sales strategy so that you can take more inspired action, working more within your feminine energy, not your toxic masculine energy. Because what we ultimately want to do is become that embodiment of the wealthy woman. So when you think of when you think of the financial goal that you want to hit right now, when you think about that happening, what is the version of you, or who is the version of you that you need to be in order to be able to receive that money? Because it isn't the version of you now, because that person has got you up until this point. But if you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. So if you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. And my mum used to say that to me. If you want to receive a different outcome, you have to take different action. And therefore, you have to be a different version of yourself that thinks and behaves in different ways in order to create that different action. You can't fake it till you make it. So when you think about receiving that goal, who is the version of you that is ultimately receiving it? Because I guarantee she is not, allowing people to overstep her boundaries. She is not wearing underwear older than her kids. She is not lowballing her prices. She is respectful of her time. She is not doing it all alone. And I think when you can start to understand that change happens at an identity level, it doesn't happen through conscious thought alone. As I showed you earlier, your conscious thought is only running 5% of your reality in any given day. And actually 90% of our thoughts are recycled from the day before. And that is because if you think about your whole body and you connect the two, we have a lot of energy that is being expended at any point in the day just to remember to breathe, to keep our blood pumping around our body. If we had to, and how to pick up a pen and all of those things, if we had to consciously think about all of these things that our body needed to do in any moment, as I said, we'd be exhausted before we even got out of bed. So our brain likes to put things on autopilot. This is how addicts become addicts, because their body starts to not only get into the routine and the habits of doing something, they also start to crave the outcomes of those actions. So even though we consciously want to be millionaires, if you are very much used to being in hustle states and chaos, your brain and your body starts to crave those hormones, that stress hormone that is continually driving your behavior. But also neurons in your brain that wire together fire together. So if at the moment you have one stimulus, which might be a topic around money, a conversation around money, you already have a default response that has been programmed into you like a routine and a habit, because it saves energy. Your body wants to keep you in a state of homeostasis. It wants to save all of that beautiful energy for your bodily functions. It doesn't want you to have to consciously think of everything that you do. But the more that you can start to think in different ways, the more that will become your new habit, the more that will become your new identity, and the more that will become your new reality. So I'd love for you to take a moment to just objectively look at the disparity between who you believe that you need to be in order to be that, but receive that financial goal, and where you currently are, and then start to map across the things that need to change. So how is she spending her money? How is she spending her time? How do her boundaries look? What are her prices? How does she show up? What's her self-care look like? What's her schedule for the week look like? What's her wardrobe look like? And where are the symbolic micro actions that you can take to bridge the gap between where you currently are and where you want to be? And that is how you start to show up as the wealthy woman. And here's a few more things that you can do to really start to get into that mode of receiving now. You can cultivate radical self-awareness, understanding your triggers. If you're, jealous of somebody, why is that? Start to question it. You can create space in your physical environment, your mindset, your spiritual decluttering. All of these things help to create a void so that money can come in and fill that void. Remove scarcity signals that drain your energy, level up your boundaries, rewrite your money story, and tackle the beliefs that are keeping you stuck. If you want to receive more value, be a woman of value. So give before you get. Surround yourself with people that lift you up and remind you what's possible, not the ones that drain your energy and make you play small. Consciously choose to raise your vibrations each day through gratitude practices and visualization. My YouTube channel has lots of incredible resources on there for that. Self-regulate your emotions, set your goals so that your brain can help you to filter out what is useful information to you and what isn't. Decide and declare that you're ready for more. Educate yourself on how to build stable wealth, whatever that means to you. And currently only 66% of the UK doesn't even have £1,000 in savings, which means that we're then resorting to, high risk lending, which is putting us on the back foot before we even get out the gate. So if all of that sounds good, you are welcome to come and join me inside my First Generation Academy. We tackle all of this. And if not, that's absolutely fine, because that hopefully you've got some tangible outcomes from today's session anyway. And ultimately, this is your checklist. So to become a match to millions, you need to dive deep into your mindset and your beliefs about money, recognize where you are sabotaging yourself, heal your past trauma and remove your blocks to success, embody the version of you that has everything that you want now, move from that place always. So not from where you currently are, but where you want to be. Make investments, decisions, and actions from that version of you, and you will bridge the gap. And then commit to daily money mindset reflection work to continue to up level.